Right, first of all, let's talk about reference material. That's always an important part of doing something like this. So I collated these images and put them into PureRef. Now this one's important because I can see how the hinge mechanism works there. And this is the lock that I kind of like and based my design on. The round one with the little key there. So just found some various, trying to find as many angles as possible to figure out how this is put together or thereabouts. I kind of took a bit of creative license as well. Here's a good example of the hinge. I don't think it's called a hinge, but something like that. And these I really like as well. They've got some nice decorative elements to them, and the keys are really cool. So I thought I'd just have those there as inspiration as well. So yeah, reference is really cool and inspirational. That's pretty much it for my reference. And this is the schematic that I made, and you can download this in the link in the description. So you can download that if you want to follow along with the tutorial. So here's the different elements there, and here's the hinge. I call it the hinge separately. And this part here is the inside part, which goes in there. That's the part that holds all the mechanical parts. Those are the plates, really, the front and back plate, and that's the key, of course. So I went with the 3 circles design. Bit of a challenge, but I thought, why not? So without further ado, let's start modeling. I'm using Blender 401, and let's delete these 2 elements there. Just keep the camera. I'm going to start by adding a reference image, which is the schematic that I created. So we'll load that in. And of course, it comes in at the angle that you were looking through the viewport. Let's just reset the rotations. So it's facing us in the front view. So 1 on the numpad is the front view. Let's switch over to the data for that. But before we do that, I just wanted to give you a heads up. If you don't know, I released an add-on for Blender. It's a free version and a pro version. And that's the bit you can see there on the right-hand side. So I will be using the add-on in this video. You don't need to use the add-on, but it just helps to get things done a little bit quicker, I felt. So if you're interested, have a look at the free version. It's the link is in the description. You're more than welcome to use that. If you like it, why not upgrade to the pro version? That's a great way of supporting the channel. Right, let's get back to the video. So now we've got the reference image there. I'm going to switch on the opacity setting and just turn that down so it's not as strong. Let's just move it back on the y-axis a little bit. Right, the first thing we need to do is center this padlock in the middle of our world. So to help me do that, I'm going to add a circle, a mesh circle, rotate it on the X90. I'm going to scale that down, and because I know the circle's right in the middle, I can then move the reference image to match the circle. And once you've done that, you can just delete the circle afterwards. So I'm happy with that, so select the circle and delete. And also to stop selecting the reference image, I'm just going to turn on the selectable tag there and turn that off. So now we can't select that by accident. Okay, I think we're pretty ready to start modeling. So I'm going to add a cylinder. You can see there the menu or Shift-A to add elements. I'm going to use the add-on. Just click cylinder. And I'm going to use 32 sides. Let's bring the radius down, something like that. So this is going to be the start of the plates, the front and the back plate. So make that as thick as you like. This isn't an exact science. Have some fun with your own version. You can see there the rotation is non-uniform, so I'm going to actually apply that so it's facing us in the right way. And to apply anything, translations, rotations, and scale, press Ctrl-A and apply the appropriate one. You can see there, it just applied the scale as well, because the add-on does warn us if the scale is non-uniform, which is really handy actually. So with that done, I've copied that cylinder, and I'm just going to scale that down, but not in the y-axis, so Shift-Y to exclude the y-axis. I'm going to put that somewhere there. Now, I did make a mistake here. I should have actually used less dense cylinder. This has still got 32 sides. which is, if you compare that to the other one, the larger one, the density of the geometry is now unbalanced, if that's a thing. So use a 16-sided cylinder is basically what I'm getting at for this part, not a 32. And I will tidy that up afterwards, actually. So what I've done there is copied the cylinder and made it the hole, effectively. You can see in the schematic. So I'm going to leave that to the side for a second, over there. And now we've got these two cylinders for the faceplate overlapping each other. So there's the face orientation buttons. That's always good to check that. So with that selected, head over to modifiers and add a Boolean modifier. So we select that and then use the eyedropper to select the second little cylinder. This time we want union because we want this to be one piece. And of course, the previous little cylinder is still there. That's why you're getting this overlapping glitch in the viewport. If I turn that off, you can see that's what we have now, which is good. So we're going to apply the Boolean modifier. And after that, as we do with most Booleans, unless they're really simple, you have some cleaning up to do. So let's just see what happens. Don't be put off by these little errors, not errors, just anomalies with the geometry, because it's never going to be like press a button and it works. You need to do sometimes some tidying up. And I've just merged some vertices there to get rid of any duplicates or overlapping vertices. So I'm going to start by deleting these two faces there and at the back. Just like that. And now you can see we've got these floating edges that look like edges. Some of them might actually be faces, but I'm not really sure. So that one there's a bit curious. I didn't expect that. So there's me trying to figure out what is going on here, what I can delete, and so on. And to be fair, you could just switch it over to vertex mode and start merging vertices manually with targets. But what I'll do is select these edges and delete them. And that left the hole now. Let's also delete this edge here, and again, one more. And we can fill that by pressing F. And there again, we can press F to fill. And you can see there we've got no overlapping vertices. And let's turn our attention to these ones over here. So again, with those selected, I'm going to delete those and fill the hole that it left behind. So when you see things like this, you do have to tidy things up as you go along. It doesn't take too long. But it's an important step in getting the right geometry at the end. So let's just fill this gap that's left behind there. Cool. Now you can see that we've got some really close vertices there. So I'm going to merge those at last. So 1, 2, and merge. M for merge at last. And at this point I realized my mistake, or not yet, almost, where I used the 32-sided cylinder for the small part. So I will go in and remove every other vertex in a second. But first of all, switch over to, I did intend on, let's first of all switch that to vertex snapping anyway. And hold down Control to activate the snapping as you're moving things. Now at this point is when I realized, whoops, I should have used a less dense cylinder. So I'm going to select every other vertex here. Again, don't be afraid to go back on what you did and tidy things up. It's for the better in the long term. So with Control Delete, I'm going to dissolve those vertices. Now we have a proportional density to the large cylinder. And now I can easily snap these on the X-axis, holding down Control as I do that. And you can see here we've got some weird distribution of the vertices, so I'll just space them out a little bit nicer, a bit more consistent. That's looking good. Now, the next step is to fill this back in now. We've got the main shape, so press F to fill that. And now we can bring into play, but before we do that actually, it's always good to create an inset first. So I'm placing the inset around halfway between the outer edge and the hole. That gives us a nice comfortable padding, if you like. So I just turned the wireframe off there in the add-on. So it's always handy to do that rather than using the menus. Okay, so let's make the hole now. Yes, I'd also realized this is also too dense. So you could just create another cylinder at this point, but I chose to go and delete the every other vertex again. But anyway, I'm going to use the add-on again now and use the Boolean modifier tool there. Feel free to use the modifiers as they normally appear in Blender. Again, the add-on's just there for speediness really and utility. And once you're happy with that, apply the Boolean yet again. We don't need that anymore, so let's delete that, because it will get quite cluttered. So let's delete all the stuff we don't need. Now we're left with this hole there. So let's select the outer loop and press E to extrude and then Y, and hold down Control to snap it along the other backside there. Face orientation is there, by the way, in that menu, but it's also on the add-on just there. So at this point, whenever you're doing extrusions, always check your face orientations. Rightio, so the next thing I did was to tidy up the large n-gon we have going on there. So I wanted to add some more, basically create the circle that we initially had there. And you can use loop tools to make this a perfect circle, just like that. And play around with these, because we don't want that distortion happening there. You can see there, if I toggle it, it keeps it all nice and straight. And there's one thing I forgot to do as well, actually, is to use the spacer tool in loop tools. But anyway, I selected those faces there, created another inset, and that's going to be the basis of our keyhole. So I'm going to put a slight bevel here, make it nice and smooth there. There you go, shade smooth. And you can also right click to get access to shade smooth. Now we've got a bit of work to do. Yeah, this looks pretty bad, but that's okay. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier. We're going to add 2 levels. Eventually, you can see there we have some serious problems. So let's turn that off just for now. And the reason that's happening is because we have this really large n-gon there, which kind of goes in around itself. So let's use the knife tool. I'm going to fast forward this part. So press K for the knife tool, click on one vertex to another, right click to continue the operation elsewhere. And once you're happy, press enter, and that will commit your cuts, just like that. And that's looking a lot better now. So if we turn our subdiv on, you can see that works as expected. Now I'm selecting the outer edge and the inner edge where the hole is. Just thinking about which edges I need to bevel here. So with those selected, I'm going to add a mean bevel weight of 1. This keeps this non-destructive. This is one method I use along with another method, but for this one I'm going to use the mean bevel weight method. And that means we need to add a bevel modifier as well. So let's turn our subdivision back on and our wireframe. Let's turn off optimal display on our subdiv and increase the viewport levels to 2. I think 2 rate needs to be. So with that done, let's turn that off. Head back into edit mode or object mode again, and let's add a bevel modifier and bring that above the subdivision modifier in the stack. You can see there, we've got some tweaking to do here. First of all, let's change the limit method to weight. That's what we're targeting, the weights on the edges. And the profile, I'm going to use 1, so it prevents it from being rounded off at this point anyway. You can see there, if I shift and click, shift to get more fine control, we're going to add a bit of a bevel, effectively support loops to these edges. If we turn our subdiv back on, turn off the wireframe, that's looking really nice and clean. Now let's have a look at this part here, because this is the default behavior for corners. However, if you go into geometry, switch this over to arc, excuse me, or patch. That will give you a better result in some cases. So do try these options that are hidden away there. I think I'm going to go with arc. That looks way better than what we had before. Let's make the keyhole now. So with that face selected, Let's I to inset that. And when I go about halfway and then inset it again, not halfway, to the bottom of the keyhole, as you can see just there in the schematic, and delete the face in the middle. Now there's the bit where you can see that all of our circles are not, or vertices aren't exactly spaced out evenly. But anyway, I'll fix that in a moment. Let's add some more mean bevel weights. So we can pick and choose which edges we want beveled, which is really nice using that technique. That's looking really cool. Happy with that. I think I felt this was perhaps a little bit too wide, so I'm just going to bring these in by snapping it like that, making sure it's in the right place. This one, press G twice. That will slide that along. To make that tight, a bit tighter in that bevel there. Okay. Let's turn X-ray on. We can see there our schematic in the background. There is our keyhole side. So we need to think about how we're going to cut this now to facilitate that hole. So first of all, let's select this one and that one and press M, merge at last. And this one we can slide across by selecting it and pressing G twice to slide that along, or this one in fact. Either one, doesn't really matter. I'm going to go with that one, I think. In fact, this one's the better one because we need the one in the middle as a support loop. And with these two faces, we're going to delete those to create the hole. And don't worry about the other half for now. We're going to use the mirror modifier. Split it down the middle. Let's do that now then. So let's go into vertex mode. So make sure you're in wireframe or X-ray mode. And select the left half or the right half, depending on how you've made yours. And this one as well. We don't need that one. And delete vertices. Let's turn X-ray off. Okay, and then we have half. Well, looks like a teddy bear head, doesn't it? I just realized. Once you're happy with that, add a mirror modifier on the X-axis. For me, on the X, could be a different one for you. And that should probably be after the bevel or before the bevel. And make sure clipping is turned on. And you can see that we've got some weird things happening. That's because these vertices are not aligned properly in the middle. You can see that they're slightly beyond the blue line. So let's fix that very easily. Let's turn off some of these modifiers so we can better see what we're doing. The best thing that I do is select all of these vertices in the same axis and then scale them in the X-axis to 0 and then enter. So SX 0 enter. That makes sure they're all flat. You can see there, if we look at the values there, we can see on the X it's slightly off. Just type in 0 and that will make sure they're right in the middle, which they are now. In fact, no, that one's still slightly off for some reason. Let's just click that in a second. Let's do that again. There we go. That's definitely 0 now. Okay, that's better. Cool. I don't know what I did wrong there, but these things happen. Make sure you check them. And that's looking cool. Nice. Okay. Let's check our face orientation. That's looking okay so far. Good stuff. So you can see there, I'm starting to notice actually. Let's slide that one as well actually before we carry on. Put that roughly in the middle. So press G twice, slide it along. Something like that. You can see there, distribution of our vertices is terrible. So yeah, I should have tidied this up before I went down too far down the road. But anyway, we can use loop tools for that. So let's select all of these vertices, right click, loop tools, space. I thought I was going to say spacer, but space is really cool. It spaces them out, shock horror, nicely for us. So let's do some more on this side. And let's just quickly do the other ones as well, because they're a bit messy. There we go. Bit of tidying up there. Let's select these edges here. And like before, we're going to extrude those on the y-axis, so we get a bit of depth to this. I wasn't sure how far to put this actually, but I decided somewhere around there is good enough. Okay, now we need to add some more support loops on this one, so let's select this edge here. And don't forget the corners as well. So we need to make sure this one here. Yeah, the weight method, of course, yeah. So we're going to increase that to 1. Let's turn our wireframe back on. And that looks glitchy there, but don't worry, it's not actually glitchy. It actually looks fine on the mirrored portion of the model. And finally, these two here, because we want these to be sharp as well. So let's add that. Let's add an edge weight there of 1 as well. And probably in that corner, just down there as well. Will I get to that? I don't know if I remember doing that or not. Let's add a loop cut there. So right click to leave it in the middle. So Control R to add a loop cut. Now we've got this n-gon here. So I'm going to add, I want to basically cut it here. So I'm going to select these edges and subdivide them. Now I've got this vertex, I can select these two and press J to join them. And that avoids having that long strip of, that long face there on its own being stretched via the subdivision surface modifier. Let's turn the wireframe back on. You can see that looks pretty good. If we turn that on and off, we're getting a pretty clean result. Let's bring the mirror modifier to the top of the modifier stack as well. So yeah, check your modifiers, see what they're doing, if they're behaving. And I'm pretty happy with that. So let's turn our subdiv on, turn our wireframe off. And that looks great. And it's all one piece. So I actually started doing this. I did this about 3 times, and you can use. I'm just using a mat cap to check for any pinching or weird artifacts on the shading. That's a great way of checking. But yeah, I did this about 3 times, and I felt a little bit bad that I just threw on another cylinder on top of the faceplate. I didn't think that was how it would be built like that, so I wanted to make it one piece. So I went back and did it again and came up with this method, which worked really well. So that's the one I'm showing you now. Let's select all of these flat faces here on the front there. Let's duplicate those with Shift D, right click, leave them in place. Let's move them to the back there and then snap them at the rear of the front plate. And of course, with that done, we've got a lot of overlapping vertices now. So I'm going to select everything, and then in the little add-on there, I've got to merge vertices by distance. Again, it's just a quick way of doing it. You can see there that looks pretty bad. Wow, that's a train wreck. What's happening here? Well, I'll give you 2 guesses. Ta-da! Look at that. Just because the face normals are the wrong way. So I've also got to recalculate normals in the add-on. Shock horror. And the reason these are there is because I wanted this add-on to be like the stuff that I tend to use, and I guess a lot of designers use frequently. So adding them to the toolbar there, for me, just much quicker than using the shortcuts. And I'm not saying don't learn the shortcuts. Please, please do. It's always good to know. But for me, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to have this add-on and just be able to click things, make things a bit easier and quicker. Yeah, more tidying up there. You can see I'm adding some more bevel weights to these edges that need it. Just like so. Oops, I think I've missed one now. There we go. And that's it. Now we're just left with this hole at the back there. You can see our face orientation looks good now. Everything's great. Okay, not the circle of life, I'm afraid. Whoops, You shouldn't throw them off the cliff. Let's add this ring. Funny story. I also went back and did that again because, again, I slapped on a torus, like I'm going to show you here, initially. And again, it bugged me because I thought that would be part of the metallic plate itself. And so I went back and added this into the piece you see behind there. So it's all one piece of metal, basically. Think of it as an old iPhone, I guess. Machined from one piece of something. Okay. Yeah, so it makes this torus the right size. And let's bring down the major segments because we've got quite a lot of geometry there. Let's bring that down. That was a major, by the way. Don't know if you got the joke there, but let's bring that out, rotate it on the x-axis, shade it smooth. We don't need the back half of that, so I'm going to switch to side view with 3 on the numpad, switch to wireframe or x-ray mode, and select all the vertices at the back and delete those. Now we just have half a torus. And of course, Control A to open the apply menu. I'm going to click the button because it's way better, baby. God, that was so cheesy. And lastly, let's snap that to the faceplate like that. Now, if you want to model that ring as part of the plate itself, go for it because you have this circle on the faceplate anyway. Just borrow that, make a couple of more inserts and extrude that out and bevel it or something. Speaking of circles, I've added a circle there. Let's work on this inner part now. So I'm going to bring that over to the left. Again, that's a 32-sided circle, mesh circle. So I'm going to scale that up. And you can see there, they've got a red warning there, red for scale. Always apply the scale. And Control A is the menu if you want to do that. I'm also going to apply the rotation. The location doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. Because obviously you move things anyway. But it's just good to know. So we want to make this shape now, as I'm indicating there with my mouse cursor. So let's think about how we're going to do that. So with that edge selected, not edge, vertex, sorry, I press E to extrude and then X to restrict it to the X-axis, and then the same again on the Z-axis. And then finally I'm going to join these two together like that. Now we've got something we can work with. We can delete all of the other vertices or edges just there. And that gives us our basic shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. As long as it looks something like that, that's good enough. So with that edge selected, I'm going to press E to extrude and bring it out on the Y-axis. Give it some thickness. Let's bring that out a little bit more maybe. That's fine. Cool. Oh yeah, face orientation, look at that. That's terrible. It's really important you do check this stuff as you go along. It's a common problem not to forget to do that. And look at that, there's a recalculate normals button in the add-on. Who knew that? Right. You're going to get so sick of me saying that. But it really is handy, I think. So anyway, let's add a solidify modifier as well. So you can see I'm switching between the add-on and normal interface just to show you that it's all there anyway. You don't need the add-on, but I like it and I use it for most things now. In fact, everything now. So there it is, solidified. Let's add that. The only thing you can't do in the add-on yet, I'm going to add that in the next update, is the even thickness switch. So that will be added in a future update. Plus some really cool stuff coming as well. So I won't tell you what those are just yet. You'll have to wait and see. It's going to be really cool. Right, now we've done that. We've applied the solidify modifier and deleted those edges and faces, at the front and the back. Let's right click and shade smooth. Let's check our face orientation. That looks good. Blue is good, red is bad. Well, as long as red's facing the right way, that is. Okay, let's add a subdivision modifier, 2 levels. And again, we're going to add a, well, in a second anyway. We're going to select some edges. Excuse me. In fact, I missed one, didn't I? On the left there, top left, inside. Whoops. See, everybody makes mistakes. I can't even talk. I did miss an edge, thank you. So give them a bevel weight of 1. And they turn blue. Add the bevel modifier to that. Change the limit method to weight again, as we did before. Nothing new here. Let's switch our wireframe on so we can see what we're doing. There it is again there in this drop-down menu there. But I like to use the add-on because it's way quicker. And let's bring down the amount of bevel. If for some reason it wasn't working there, it wasn't giving me the feedback. So there's me trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? It's because I wasn't in object mode, strangely. So there you go. Let's make that a little bit smaller. With our subdiv turned on. That looks great, apart from that inner top left. I don't know how I missed it, honestly. Become blind to it after a while. Let's put that back, well, put it in the middle now. So there it is, and it's intersecting our plate. So let's move that along like that, and we can use vertex snapping again. Make sure you hold down Control. And have your snapping set to vertex, of course. And that's looking cool. Give it a look around, make sure everything's okay before you take the next step. Right, you can see there our pivot point is at the front there. We don't want that. We want it to be in the middle. So I right click, set origin to geometry. Okay, with that done, now I'm going to make the back plate. So I'm going to duplicate the front plate with Shift D, move it to the back. Of course, we have all the same modifiers as the original. So now what we can do now is just delete stuff we don't need. And that's quite easy to do. So we're going to select, let's put our 3D cursor there first. So let's do cursor to selected, that's Shift S to access that menu. And I'm going to scale those vertices to the 3D cursor. So up there, switch it to 3D cursor as our transform point, S for scale, 0, enter. And that brings it all nicely like that. That does mean we have overlapping vertices, but we can use merge vertices to check for that anyway and fix that. Let's get rid of all of this stuff now. We don't need this. Select coplanar. Select all the front ones. Press Ctrl plus on the numpad to grow the selection and delete those faces. Or you can select them manually. Same as before. Select 2 vertices. I'm going to then add the 3D cursor there. S for scale, 0, enter. Now we have the plate there. Don't forget to do merge vertices, by the way. I must have done that because otherwise it would be glitchy. Cool. Let's make some bolt things, or these, I don't know what they are. They're the bits that go inside the hole that hold the hinge part. So let's add the 3D cursor there first by making a selection and then Shift S, cursor to selected. This time I'm going to add a round cube, and if you don't have that option, head over to Preferences, Add-ons. It comes with Blender, just turn it on. It's extra objects, add mesh, extra objects, toggle that on, make sure you save it, and now you can do Shift A, round cube. And that's great, that's exactly what it is, but we don't want that. We want operator presets, quad sphere. Now that's a bit dense. So let's turn this divisions down. I'm trying to decide which one to go for. No, 4 it is then. Okay, let's go with 4. With that selected, S for scale. Now, I don't normally do this in object mode because I have the add-on warning me of any non-uniform scale, which it is now. I'm not too worried about forgetting that now. Switch over to the side view, X-ray mode on. I'm going to bring that somewhere there. Oops, I'm going to try and snap it, but it's not quite doing it. But that's fine, just do it manually. Now tab into edit mode. Let's select this one vertex here, Control plus, and select all of this right half. Could have just dragged the box to be honest, and delete those. And then alt click this edge loop there. And E to extrude on the Y axis, so press Y after you press E. And then we've got this kind of bullet head shape. Let's turn X-ray back on. Select everything with tapping the A key, and I'm going to scale it on the Y axis to squash that into a bit more of a smaller shape. That should be a medium point, but there's our point for our object. We can move that later if we need to. Let's vertex snap that there, so it's flush with the back of the plate. Right click to shade smooth, of course. It overlaps there a little bit, don't worry, because our subdivision modifier is going to smooth that out. So I do allow for that, compensate a little bit for it. You can see there that's got rid of the overlapping now. That was a lucky guess, wasn't it? Now, how many levels do we need? 1 or 2? There's a bit of a gap there actually. Let's make that a tiny bit bigger. So S, hold down the shift key. Excuse me, frog in my throat. Hold down the shift key and make that a little bit bigger, so we don't see any nasty gaps. Apply the scale, of course. You can see there it's non-uniform. So click the button. Make sure you do that in object mode. I don't think that works in edit mode. Check our face orientation, as always. And we just need to fill the back there. So let's switch off our... let's get 1 level. That should be enough. Okay, it's not too bad. Okay, let's go with that. Anyway, let's select this alt click and select the rear of this bolt thing. Let's select the edge. Press F to fill. I'm going to press I to inset that. And select this edge loop. And I don't think I'm going to use another bevel modifier for this. I don't think it needs it. It's not that hard. I might just give it a manual bevel. So Control B, leave it rounded, give it 2 segments. It's a very simple shape to make, so I'm not too worried about making this in a fancier way or non-destructive way. So that's good. That looks right. Let's put our cursor back to the world origin. Let's switch to matte cap. Always forget how to say that. Make sure that looks good. Right, this is not important, but just to show you why I've used a quad sphere and not a UV sphere. Now that's a UV sphere there, and I've added a subdivision modifier. You can see there, you've got this horrible pinching at the pole of the UV sphere. And that would be at the front and back, or top and bottom, whichever way it's orientated. This is why it's happening, because all these triangles there, and the subdiv modifier doesn't know what to do with it. So that's why I didn't use that, and I used the quad sphere instead. That gives you much cleaner shading. Cool, let's mirror that. So I'm going to use the mirror tool there in the add-on. I'm going to select that as my mirror axis. Click the X axis and add. All that's done is add a mirror modifier. We also want to mirror that to the back actually, so we could change that from using the front plate. There it is in our modifier stack. Let's bring it up. Get rid of the padlock part there and click on the actual middle bit. As long as your transform point on the object is in the middle, that gives us a nice basis for mirroring the bolts that we made there. You can see there, we can see some red parts inside the lock, which is okay if you're doing cycles rendering. And what that means is that the outer shell, or this plate actually, is paper thin, which of course it is. So I'm going to fill this hole with something just to give it some solidity. So I'm going to put my 3D cursor back there again. Switch that to 3D cursor. And press 1 and then Control 1 to flip to the back side. Let's make that a little bit smaller. And I want that smaller because I don't want that to be larger than the part that extrudes at the front part where the keyhole is. And the reason being, I want to extrude this in now. So with those edges selected, I can press E to extrude. And I'm going to use vertex snap in with just hold down Control. So once you've done that, let's put that to medium point first. And I'm going to hold down Control and snap it along as far as that. Now if I check from the other side, I can't see any red now. That's good enough, that will do. And of course that needs to be beveled as well. Let's add a bevel weight on that and we're pretty much done. Cool. Let's turn our subdiv back on. And everything is nicely looking good there. I think I got carried away checking the photo orientation, but you can catch you out. It's worth a lot. Anyway, that'll do for part 1. Join me in part 2. Thanks for watching. I'll let this play out. If you like this content, like and subscribe. Truly appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.